Welcome to Risk and Resilience. On today's episode, we have Jaime and Roxanne Aguillon with Niche Realty. We talk about how a potentially disastrous accident in Jaime's hometown ultimately changed the course of his life, the role that faith has within your personal and professional relationship with your spouse, and navigating the complexities of going from real estate agent to broker and from broker to dad. Let's get into it. Welcome back. Round two. Welcome to Risk and Resilience. Today we have Niche Realty. We have Roxanne Aguillon and Jaime Aguillon, the broker of Niche Realty. Thank y'all guys for being in here.
Yes,
for having us.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So we
thinking of us.
Of course, guys. Y'all send me a lot of work. I work a lot with Stephanie. Is that your sister?
Yeah, she was telling me before.
She is so awesome. Yeah, she really is. We've got a good working relationship together. She sent us to do an inspection today. She was like, it looks fine, but I just want your seal of approval on it. Like she's super cool. I really appreciate y'all sending that too.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate you too.
So we start every podcast the same way. Roxy, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Yes. So whenever I was little, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. And then getting into the marketplace.
Your mom said you had like a lot of animals growing up.
Yeah, we had like 8 or 10 cats.
What?
3 dogs. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. In a good way, right? Like they all had beds
I
and stuff?
thought so. I thought so. They were outdoor cats, but that's where my love came about.
That's awesome.
Animals, yeah. And then going into the marketplace, I wanted to do marketing. Went to school for marketing for a little bit, and then got an entry level marketing job for a corporate company. So I really enjoyed that. Ended up getting pregnant. And
Not by me.
no.
I was in the picture, yeah.
I know, like, oh my gosh, it's a little difficult to repeat a story. Like the enthusiasm, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I wanted to stay at home with him for a while. So once that relationship was coming to an end, that's whenever I started thinking about careers and, you know, just trying to have like a bird's eye view of my life and stuff. And so
How old were you when you were
like 21?
Oh my gosh. I was oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was 21 whenever I had Asher. And so his sister, actually, my baby daddy's sister, was like, oh, instead of like finishing school, you can just do real estate or something. And at first I was like really offended. Like, you don't think I can get a degree? Like, just finish this off and you know, do what I originally wanted to do, which was marketing. But that really planted a seed, and I started doing research, and I was like, yeah, real estate is cool. It looks so fancy, and I loved interior design and houses and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I got into real estate, really.
Cool. What about you, Jaime?
When I was little, I wanted to be in the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot for sure. I thought that was cool, just watching jets fly and everything.
Oh yeah.
I'm from the country. It's a really small town, so like I didn't have exposure to a lot of things, but that was one thing.
Where at?
Hereford, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Up by Amarillo.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Hereford.
It's a
Where
small town.
is that where the Hereford cows come
yeah,
from?
Hereford Whitefield.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's the beef capital of the world there.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's more cows than people. Alone show. Yeah.
So Air Force pilot.
Yeah, Air Force pilot. That was short-lived. Then I got older, went to junior high, like was all in the mix with the friends. And I cared a lot about what people thought about me at that age. I don't think that I had like a strong foundation. So I was like influenced easily.
You knew both.
By everybody around me. And so from there, I was pretty much, you know, just like a little robot lost in the sauce with everybody else.
Yep.
And I was pretty much like that from junior high till I moved here to San Antonio when I was 19 going on 20.
Cool.
Yeah.
What brought you here?
My parents, well, back to the beef capital of the world, I shot my right eye with a hand stunner. I used to kill cows for a living.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I had a crazy accident. I was blind for like 2 months. And during that recovery time, I had took a period where I went to college while I was working at that slaughterhouse to be a medical phlebotomist. And I finished that. I got certified. But in that town, there's one hospital. There wasn't a job.
Not a lot of opportunity.
Not a lot of opportunity. And so I'm in bed. My parents are in San Antonio looking for a house to buy. Right? They're trying to work on their marriage and they're moving, and I was going to stay. But then after I shut my eye, I was like, dang, I don't think I want to be here for the rest of my life. Like,
You can't just tell us you shut your eye and not tell us how, man.
Have you ever seen like a slaughterhouse?
Well, kind of. It's
real quick, it's funny that you were killing cows and you want to be a veterinarian. But go back, go back. I never connected those dots. I had to put it out there. But anyway, so I've seen a slaughterhouse. Yeah. Is it like then that actually speaks to me? Like I feel like Holy Spirit speaking to me. Like the guy I was back then, she would have never dated.
No,
Dude, that is crazy. Like I was literally the opposite of what God had planned for you and for me at that time.
It's touching.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Tissues.
Yeah,
Just kidding. But anyway, so how'd it happen?
so I was killing bulls, right? When bulls come in, there's a concrete wall that separates the shooter from the cow. And so we're slightly elevated, right? I'm above, but the bulls are so tall, their heads will go over the concrete wall. And they're just, they're shaking their heads. They're not trying to be there. They know they're, like, so you have a hand stunner that's this thick. It shoots out a rod this long, about this thick, and you load it with a blank. Well, the bull knocked my gun off the table, and the force caused it to fall, and it shot. And I tried to catch it before it hit the floor, and it just ricocheted right back into my right eye. Like it happened so quick. Like it literally impaled my eye, just boom. And the impact was so powerful that both eyes went black. Like I couldn't see from any eye. And I just remember what's interesting about this whole situation to me. At that time, I didn't go to church. Like I grew up in church, but my parents made me go. And like God was the furthest thing from my thoughts at that age. Or like I didn't pray before meals. I didn't none of that. But when that happened, the first words that came out of my mouth was like, God, please don't take my vision. Dude, I remember that day like it was yesterday.
I bet.
I couldn't see for one. And so I'm just like breathing like, God, please don't take my vision. Like I'm 17, 18 years old. Like I want my eye, And then slowly this eye started coming back. It's not the one that got hit. But I just felt like this oozing coming down. And in my mind, I thought my eye exploded. And that it was just like eye juice just running down my face. And yeah, man, that happened. I looked to the left where my boss is, my supervisor. And they only speak Spanish back there. It's a bunch of Spanish-speaking people. I'm like, abuelo, ¿qué pasó? Like, ¿cómo se mira mi ojo? He's like, ay, pinche Mimi. It's like, ¿qué hiciste? And I'm like, dang, it's bad. Like, this dude's freaking out, But long story longer, I got my vision back. And during that time, that's when I thought, I already have a certificate for phlebotomy. San Antonio is a big city. I bet you I can find a job there doing what I went to school for.
Wow.
And that's why I moved here, because I applied. I got hired by Quest Diagnostics. So I knew I was going to move here and work right downtown, actually, off of McCullough.
Wow. What a story, man.
Yeah, dude, that was wild.
That's so insane. No kidding, man. It sounds like it started this whole thing, and now you're here on the podcast representing Niche Realty, what you're looking for. That's awesome. Well, I hate to say I'm glad it happened, but it seems like that it led to only good things. Man, that was a really good intro. Let's get into the actual segment of the podcast. We're going to start talking about Rich. So today we're specifically highlighting Niche Realty, and we want to talk specifically about the transition from being a real estate agent into a broker. What's that like?
Okay, so like in granular level, you have to have an agent license for 4 years. You have to accumulate 900 hours of schooling, qualified education, things like that. And then they have a point system for the number of transactions you have to complete within a 12-month period for the past 5 years. Like every 5 years they track. You have to represent so many people, successful transactions, and then a point system comes out, and then you can qualify.
Who's they?
Is it real estate commission?
Oh, okay. So they're the ones that's beside it.
Yeah. They're here for the consumers. Like Texas Real Estate Commission, I'm thankful that Texas has them. It's very black and white, clear cut, how you do business and how you don't do business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the transition, what was it like for you, Roxy? What was that transition like? I mean, I'm sure y'all had several conversations about actually forming it.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
Gosh, it was a bunch of in my head. Like, okay, what are the details that need to take place for this to come to fruition, So yeah, I mean, just all in the details, like what do we do first? Like what are just
a million
steps?
Things to do.
Yeah, what are the small steps that we can take to make this happen? So that's kind of where my mind was whenever we started the brokerage or like started talking about just going independent.
That's awesome. Yeah, because y'all left a big is it a brokerage?
Yeah, it's a brokerage.
So I left a big brokerage to go out and do it on your own. And I'm sure there was a lot that y'all weren't thinking about when you finally started it.
For sure.
What was that like?
It was challenging, honestly. Yeah. It was challenging. Like,
what were some of the things that you didn't think about, and then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, that, and the other.
I think mostly like supporting our agents, like supporting Stephanie. I mean, she was like the one who was like on board, ready to jump whenever we were.
That's awesome.
So,
Even bringing
so yeah.
our deals over. So when you're with the brokerage, right? A real estate agent is known as a sales agent through the eyes of Trek. And then a broker can sponsor a sales agent. So when you hire a realtor to help you go find a house or sell your home, you're actually hiring the brokerage.
Oh,
the realtor is just appointed, but the broker's that's who, it has your deal pretty much.
Sure.
So when we decided to go independent, we had deals under contract in escrow with the brokerage we're at.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the big things for us that was a big shock, because we were under the impression that the split we had agreed upon with the brokerage, which was 80-20, was going to be the split we got after we left. So like the deals we still had in escrow, when those commissions got paid out, we were going to get our share, and then that brokerage was going to keep theirs. So I called the manager the day we got our broker license. I made it active. It was so quick. And then I called him like, hey, we're not with your company anymore. I have my broker's license. We just want to let you know in advance, this is what's going down. What's going to happen with the deals we still have in escrow with you? We've got 4 deals that are closing in the next 3 weeks, all of them within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that the manager at that time, she said, hey, don't worry about it. The split's going to be the same. We wish you the best, super respectful. And the operations manual that they have every agent sign, it's real clear in there what happens when you leave the brokerage with those deals. Mm-hmm. Well, when I pulled up that deal, it said they go to 50-50 instead of 80-20. So now we're talking about 30% of our checks about to stay with this company. It's a good amount. Yeah. So I called the broker of that, like, hey, the manager told me this, but we got paid. My sister ended up getting the first check, and she's like, yo, this thing's short, like $4,000, bro. What's up? And I'm like, oh, heck no. I was like, let me hit up this dude real quick. I called him. I was like, hey, we were told this. He's like, I'm sorry. That's what you signed. That's what's going to go down. And at that time, I was just like, whatever. Like, it's not worth my energy to go. At that point, it was because that was my sister's check. Sure. Our deals, I'm like, we have so many other things going on with this brokerage. I'm not even worried about that money. God will give it back to us. He'll multiply. And I don't know, bro. Like throughout that day, I was driving, and I just felt like God was saying, like, look, just call him again. Like, call this dude again. And he was sick for one. Like, he was out with COVID, and so he was texting me. And I don't like texting for negotiations. I want to hear your voice. I want you to hear my voice. So I hit him back up, and I was like, hey, I know you guys do the right thing all the time, and I wouldn't expect it to be any different if this person hadn't told me verbally that this was the deal. Like, I would have waited 3 weeks to close these deals out and then leave the company. Like, I'm not stupid. Yeah. That's the most.
And you were upfront and honest about that whole thing too.
That makes financial sense for you and for us. And he's like, it's not my call. The owner of the company has to get involved. And so like, we all had an opinion about the owner of this company because we had been there. I'm like, damn, there's no way she's going to give it to us. Heck no. She doesn't even know who we are, And I already felt a kind of way about that because the brokerage we were at before then, like, and it's not like bragging or anything, but when you're a top producer at that company, dude, they make sure that they're in relationship with you every day. They check in on you. Well, at this last brokerage we were at, nobody hit us up, nothing. And right, it doesn't matter. Like, it is what it is. But because of that, I was like, they don't even care who's here. Like, they're just getting this check, and it is what it is. But so anyways, I ask him, he emails them, and then he calls me back. He's like, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead and honor what they verbally told you. And I was like, I knew that. That was like God's blessing. Like, you're doing what I want you to do in your life. Like, I got your back. Like, contractually, legally, they didn't owe us any money. And they still chose to, I would say Jesus changed their heart because they didn't have to do that. And they did. So we were able to keep the checks. And we needed that. I mean, it was a big
starting out.
Yeah, like that chunk of money, bro. It could have been the difference between us staying in business or going back to not that company, but the company we were with before them. Sure. The one I was with for 10 years, not just 1 year.
Every penny counts when you're starting out. There's so much that you're not thinking of. There's QuickBooks. There's like all these small little subscriptions that at the end of the day, it's, $15, $25, $50 a year. And then it starts adding up. And then you look at the bank account, and all of a sudden it's like, what just happened? And then you see all your subscriptions. You touched on something. You touched on something there that I think is really important. It's you had to this point you've been a realtor for how long? 4 years,
12 years.
Oh, so you were a realtor for 12 years when you became a broker. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you started out, you became successful. You've had to face challenges. I'm sure that those weren't I'm sure you lost deals in the process. So the actual in your mind, it's not a question of can I do it? It's if I want to do it at this point. That is a theme in every single person that has been on this podcast. They don't consider, it's out of the equation. But if you're not thinking that way, if you're not wired that way, it's where your dreams die, right at risks. I've got my comfortable, 9 to 5. I've got a salary. I've got my cubicle. My bills are paid. If I work twice as hard tomorrow, my check is still going to be the same on Friday, no matter what. And I've got this really good idea. And I look it up, and somebody else already did it. I don't want to do it anymore. Dead. We're not like that.
Yeah, there's 16,000 realtors in the city.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's to come be you. When did you get into realty after you moved here?
Almost immediately. I got my real estate crazy. Sure, 20
small town, and then coming here with a fresh eye, and then, getting into real estate. That's crazy. It's really inspiring, man, to see how you got to this point. What was the real estate process like for you, Roxy, when you first got in? Was it a struggle?
Gosh, it was a struggle, but like whenever I think about risk, I'm like black and white, like fail or succeed.
Yeah.
Like it's your decision, it's your choice. So I had made the decision that I was not going to be a statistic. Like I wanted to succeed. So I would go to people like Jaime or like people who I saw that were performing at high levels, and I was never scared to ask, like, what are you doing? Or like, can I follow you? Can I shadow you? And so yeah, that's how it was for me. Like in the very beginning, I had an amazing mentor who, she showed me the ropes of everything in the real estate world. And I'm so grateful for her because she just performs at such a high level. And still, I'm super grateful for her mentorship. And
what's her name?
Yeah, Sheba Ramos.
Shout out to you, Sheba Ramos. That's awesome.
She's amazing.
That's awesome. That's great. So let's get back to becoming the broker. So you left a big agency, or I'm sorry, a big brokerage that already had, the systems, the processes, the things that as what I would in my industry would be just a salesperson is the equivalent of a realtor. You don't think about it. You don't think about all the stuff that goes on in the background that keeps the wheels greased and keeps everything moving. What was that transition like for y'all when you decided to become the broker? And you get your broker's license, you start it up, and then you bring your sister on. What was the transition for? Because everybody's looking to you at that point, right? Everybody's looking to you and wondering if does this thing have legs or not. What was that transition like for you? Switching from you're really going from player to coach in a heartbeat. What was that like?
Well, honestly, we're still in the transition. Like we opened up the brokerage. I got my license in August, and I think we're official in September. We had to do like the legal stuff and the real estate commission and LLCs and all that good stuff. But real estate's one of those simple things. Like it's not complicated, and there are only so many things that really matter at the beginning, and there are things that are very simple. Conversations, right? This is a contact sport. You have to talk to people, get to know people. Know them on a real personal level. So the transition for us, like unlike the brokerages that we've worked with previously, websites, all this other stuff that are important, we're just not paying too much attention to it right now.
Sure.
Because the number one thing for us is helping people buy and sell real estate. The number one thing that feeds our business are people like you, right? So right now I'm focused on helping my sister move her production up. She has goals that she wants to hit this year. I'm focused on my personal goals. My wife and I have goals together, and then we have another agent named Lauren. So the number one thing right now, the transition for us is just making sure that they have a path to follow, and then checking in with them regularly. Like, what challenges did you face this year? How can I help you? What systems can we provide to support you?
I actually heard one of y'all's calls at the inspection I went to. I heard one of y'all's calls. And I was like, man, we should really do that. That's really cool because you really are like you're getting in the weeds. You're wanting to know where you're at, what happened there. That's really cool. But were you like that already?
No. I mean, yes, before this point, yeah. I would say like the first half of my career, I was just playing around with it. I was really young. I didn't know that it was something I can really build on. Like I got lucky, honestly, because it was nuts. My first year in real estate, I joined a very small brokerage, like a mom and pop, kind of like us right now, a little bigger than we are now. And I was 20 years old, bro. Like I think I had like a 500 credit score. I don't even know. Like, it was crazy. But I think that helped me, just not knowing what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't have any fears. Like, I'm in a new city.
100%.
And I thought everything was normal. Like, my first year in real estate, I think I helped like 14 people buy and sell real estate. And statistically, on a national average, most agents only sell 6 houses a year. So like, here I am, 20 years old, a city I don't know anybody in, and I had 14 closings. And I went from like a $28,000 salary at Quest Diagnostics to like 90,000 in sales my first year. And
That is
just like
20-year-old.
Yeah,
That's
like it was dangerous, bro. I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
I blew all of it. Like, I'm talking all of it.
Oh yeah.
It fueled my lifestyle that God didn't want me living in, and I was like that for maybe the first 3 or 4 years, where my income kept raising, and I know that the things that happened to me when I was 24, 25 were supposed to, like, you have to be broken down so you can be broke,
100%.
built back up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, that's I'm glad you said that. There's a lot that's involved with that. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress that you put on yourself when you take that driving role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really realize it, but for me, it's usually when my head hits the pillow. As soon as my head hits the pillow, I think like, oh man, I forgot this, I forgot that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm worried about this. I'm worried about, you know, making sure my guys are getting paid. Everybody around me who's willing to put my name on their shirt and go out and work for me. There's a lot of responsibility behind it, let alone paying people and knowing that like you're not providing, they're providing for their families, but you're the vehicle that allows them to earn that living and to chase dreams and to change your circumstance, go from a $28,000 salary to a $90,000 income in a year. Like that's really inspiring. And what I hear coming from you is you've been a leader. I mean, it sounds like you've always been that type of person, or at least maybe you became that when you got broken down and you realized like what you needed to do. What was it like seeing that transition for how long ago known each other? I'm sorry. Where were you like in?
We didn't know each other at that point.
Okay. So
Okay. Yeah. So we met at Keller Williams, like whenever I got into
Okay.
real estate. We actually joined the brokerage at the same time. He was with Keller Williams City View before, right?
EXP,
Oh, okay.
like 7 months. It was a long time.
Well, we joined the biggest brokerage in San Antonio at the same time. And so they have a new agent training called Ignite. So we did that together.
That's another God thing too, because like you said, it's a new agent training.
Right.
At this point, I'd already been in business like 7 years, and I wasn't going to go through it. But the owner of the company, Craig, he's such an awesome human being.
Mm-hmm.
I met with him before I joined, and we were just talking. He's like, "Look, you've been in business for a while. I'm sure there are bad habits you have." He's like, "Go through our training. You've never been to this training. Go through it. It's going to be good for you." And looking back, that was another God wink right there. Like, if I never showed up to that training, I would have never met Roxanne. And it's not a 1-day training. It's a 6-week training, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Like,
oh my gosh.
bro, I'm trying to sell real estate. You want me sitting in a class all day? Like, seriously? But I did. Yeah, I did that. And I'm so thankful for that.
That's awesome. So what was the transition like for you, you know, seeing your husband go from the player to the coach like that?
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
What was that question?
Yeah.
So Jaime has always been an incredible leader. Like he's always just been like a servant, like a, what's it called?
Servant mentality.
Yeah, servant leader. That's what we would call it at Keller Williams. So he always taught classes and stuff like that. And so, I mean, the transition was pretty seamless because he has always steered the ship. And so, you know, whenever you have that much faith in someone's leadership, you just kind of like, you're like, how
Makes it easy.
You know,
Makes the guesswork out of it.
yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it was a great transition from agent to broker from what I saw, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the funny thing about this podcast is like, I always tell people, you never know how good the story is that you're in until you tell somebody about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of part of it. You know, there's probably a realtor who's maybe might watch this. My mom is probably our only viewer at this point. But maybe some of y'all's people, but there's maybe a realtor watching this right now who's been in business for 4 or 5 years, who's blowing their money, and he's listening to you tell your story. And that's really what this is about. So I love how vulnerable you're being, both of y'all. I mean, I really appreciate that. You're really going to help some people out. Some people are going to really hold on to this. Back to risks. So when y'all started the brokerage, did that cause stress and tension, like within y'all's unit, the family unit?
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing I noticed You're gonna say something because I got like right on my heart.
No. You go ahead. I'm like, I feel like no, but
For us, no.
So yeah, let's see.
I know, right? Like,
I'm glad she brought that up because we operate the same, right? Like we're cool just being me and her, right? That's it. My sister, her personality, she has to be around a lot of people. So we go from a 1,100 agent office to 2, you know? And so for me, it was nothing, bro. Like you mentioned, there's not an option. I just show up and do what I need to do and it's going to work.
Yeah.
But I didn't think how it was going to impact my sister. And like, she was like, bro, like, what are we going to do? Like, I miss being in the office. I need this energy. Like, I'm in a slump. I don't have the energy. Like, she would go to the office to be around that energy. And that energy fuels you, right?
Yeah, it's contagious.
Yeah. So I'm like, dang, I'm talking to Roxanne, like, we didn't open the brokerage to bring agents on. We did it just for us. And now I'm like, well, we need to bring agents on to create an environment and a culture for my sister too. And I think that's kind of why I mentioned we're still in the transition period. Like right now, the brokerage is for us.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to do it our way, how we want to do it, learn it, grow it, and then start to bring on people. If that's what God wants us to do, you know? And I think that we want to stay organic in that way. I'm not sure we got to this point, but.
Well, I mean,
it's a good thing you brought that up.
Yeah, seriously. Well, that's really important. And that's actually a really good segue into the break and kind of going into the second part of the podcast, which is resilience. Being in that transition, having that stress is almost like you almost get addicted to it. Like the hustle and bustle and knowing that like your phone's going off and there's a lot of people, you need to do a lot of things, but there's comfort in that. At least for me, and if you've been weathered and you've had to be really busy and had to wear many hats and switch your brains in one conversation to the next, it hardens you and it really takes the guesswork. Like we've been talking about, it's gonna happen because I'm doing it. It's not. I could sit here and think of a million reasons why I shouldn't do it, and all of them be incredibly valid and true or honest. But you just need one to win. And that's what we're going to get into on the resilient segment of the podcast. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back, guys.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, guys, welcome back to Risk and Resilience. We still have Niche Realty, Jaime and Roxy. We are now going to get into the resilience segment, which we were just about to right before we took the break. Let's get into it. So you're in that transition now, right? Mm-hmm. You're still in, you did the risk. I call it the LegalZoom phase, right? Mm-hmm. You get on LegalZoom, you file the LLC, you do it, and it stays there. And it just stays there. Nothing ever happens to it because of risk. You're past that. You got a place, you got a brokerage, you're in it. What's the resilience like? How many times have you thought like, man, is this going to happen? Like the almost not getting paid that certain percentage, like that would have been, resilience had to have been a part of that. And to us, people like us, we don't really see it as resilience. We just see it as what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. I'm doing this. I got kicked in the teeth, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do it again because that's all we know. Tell us a little bit about the resilience part.
I think that I couldn't speak about resilience if I didn't speak about my faith. Mm-hmm. Things don't get easier. Most of the time they get harder, right?
More money, more problems, right?
So when I was 25, that's when I dedicated my life to Jesus. Like that's really when I was like, dang. But because of that, and because of him, I know whose I am, mm-hmm. and I know who's like watching over me, whose favor I have. And the day that I realized that, it's like the risks, they're there, right? But I'm not worried about them. Mm. And I think that one thing that anybody who like wants to get in business or whatever, like you've got to have that belief, or you're going to hit a wall and you're going to stop. Yeah. I mean, it's
a house of cards at that point. If you don't have a foundation or something that keeps you grounded or whatever that may be, you need it. You need that. You have to have something to. I was like that for so many years. It's like there's nothing. You're not anchored to anything, and when you're not anchored to anything, what are you? You're just floating, and you're going with the flow, and usually that flow isn't good because you're just worried about what makes you feel good. What makes me right now immediately, what's the best decision for me immediately right now, not what's best ultimately, down the road. What about you, Roxy? I mean, you kind of have a different perspective on it, kind of seeing it from as an agent. I know y'all are married, but you kind of see behind the scenes also. But I'm sure there was moments that were tough that you had to kind of get through. Tell us about a couple of those.
Yeah, I mean, we still have rough times where, we wish that things were in place that aren't, and I mean, we just learn from those and kind of adapt. Resilience to me is like the strength to overcome those things, the stress and the not being able to go to bed at night and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's tough. It's tough when because I've been on kind of both ends of it. I've had to watch somebody who was my boss do it, and then I had to kind of sit in the background. Like, I trusted the guy, and I was game no matter what. But it's a different perspective because it's kind of like, I'm kind of putting all my eggs in one basket here. Am I right about this guy? I mean, I know it's different for y'all, but that's what I was feeling at the time. And it's like, you have to be resilient while supporting somebody else. Like, resilient for yourself, and then resilient for the team, and resilient for what you're trying to build and what your husband is trying to build. That's a really interesting perspective. It's one that gets left out a lot. Nobody really asks. It's all about. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it's an interesting perspective for people who are in the same position that you're in, where they're having to be resilient for somebody else, and they're having to put the team first, and even though it's not their own team. Going back to some of the resilience, so I want you to tell the story. We talked about this in the pre-podcast interview of the schooling for the brokerage. I love that story.
Okay.
Yeah, that was interesting. That at that time when I had talked to Roxanne about let's get this broker's license, we met with the counselor at Champions School of Real Estate to ask what classes do I need to take, how many are they, and when are you guys offering them? And so then they gave us the classes. I think it was like 17 or 18 classes, and they're all like 30-hour classes. Like, I needed 500, 600 hours, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, like, my gut reaction was like, dang, it's going to take like another year or two. Like, how can I commit that time to go to class 2 full days a week? Like, it's going to take me forever, right? And at one point, we were going to Austin because San Antonio only offers so many classes a month. But the campus in Austin was offering different courses.
Wow.
So we drove to Austin, stayed there, made an attempt at it. And then this wasn't last year. This was a few years ago. But this past year, the schooling came around. I remember telling Roxanne, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do exactly what I did when I was 20 years old. When I knew I wanted to get in real estate, I went to school online because I knew at my own pace I can knock it out the park. Like, I just go quick, or I read the book, take the test. Like, I learn like that. I can do that. And she was like, there's no way you've had these classes paid for like 4 years and you haven't taken any of them. Like, they're just sitting there online. Like, just take it slow, 1 class a month. You're like trying to be realistic.
Yeah.
I was like, no, like I got to do it. Like, just trust me. If I don't go and do this whole weekend of just online schooling, then I'll do your route. I'll just go 1 a month. And I took 1 class. I think it took me like a day and a half. A 30-hour class took me like a day and a half.
Wow.
I say day and a half, like maybe 10 hours. 5 and 5 hours both days. I was like, dang, like I can do it, but let me see if I can pass this test now. So then I have to go into the school to take the test. It's a proctored test. And I'm going to figure out, did I learn anything? And then bam, I passed it. And then I told Rox, I was like, dang, like, I know I could do this. So literally I took a month off of producing. I took a month off of everything. I'm going to just take these classes and just get it done.
That's risk and resilience.
Dude, heck yeah, big risk.
For sure.
A
and
week
from
off
me.
in real estate, yeah, and then no time with her. I was in the room just pounding out that book and exhausted from it. And I have a baby at home too. Like, I want to spend time with them. I'm just like, I have to do this. Like, I need to get it done. I have momentum. I'm not going to break this momentum. Like, I need to finish this right now and just go hard in the paint.
That's awesome, man. And you brought up another part of this time, right? Mm-hmm. How much time does this cost? If you could monetize, and you could argue that time is monetized, but if you could put like a number on it, and you could see how many minutes you spent away, or how many games you missed, like that is part of being resilient and knowing that, buddy, I'm not going to be able to make it today, but I'm working for our future right now. And part of that is we both need to make some sacrifices. I've had to have that conversation with my son several times where it's just like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I'm really trying to give you a life I never had the opportunity at, which is at the core of pretty much everybody, right? As a parent, we always want to give our kids the opportunities that we didn't have, the problems that we didn't have, or the problems that we did have, to eliminate those. And y'all still growing. Roxy, you're 20 days.
Yeah, 20 days away.
What's does she have a name?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's her name?
Naomi.
Ooh, that is pretty. That's my biggest fear, is having a girl. I hate to say it. I do,
but it's coming.
Hey man, dude, I'll say a prayer for you. Oh gosh.
I was down for another boy. I was like, we're gonna name him Jaime.
3? Oh man, that would be awesome. You're halfway to a football team, man. That's interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about the family dynamic. I mean, y'all kind of have a cheat code, right? You get to go to work together. When does that go wrong?
Every day.
I work with my wife. I get it.
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the schooling thing, like, it's funny because I felt a need to like control, like, okay, if I was getting my broker's license, this is what I would do. And so I really pushed that on him, and I was like really adamant about just take one a month, because like I can at least force you to go once a month, and it still gives you time to run the business and be at home with us and whatever. But that didn't work out. So I'm glad that he found what worked for him back when he was younger.
Sure.
But yeah, as far as family dynamics and everything,
it's work,
yeah,
right? It's literally
sure
part
work.
of the job. It's like it gets to a point where it's like, okay, now we need to find a way. Living together is one thing, but not working with each other is kind of a good thing, right? You get some time off, you get some time away where you can. And I'm a really, really independent person, and Vanessa, my wife, is a very independent person too. So when we work together, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, no, I want it this way. No, this one's better. But Alyssa gets to see that pretty much every day. But it's interesting to kind of put it into perspective, though. Like, we're doing this, but it's one of the hardest things to do, is to literally blend two minds into a relationship, and then taking that relationship to another level of working together and like building this and having to support each other at work, and then having to transition back where I'm sure she's the boss at home and then she's the broker at home. But it's interesting that how it kind of switches like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on how to deal with that, or what works for y'all? What has been working for y'all?
Just being connected. At the end of the day, we're in a relationship with each other plus one.
Yeah.
Like, without Jesus in our relationship, I don't see how we'd be able to make it past anything.
Yeah.
Truth.
We go to re-engage at our church every Tuesday night, and that's like our date night. It's an opportunity for us to be around other married couples who've been married for 50 years, 60 years, 20 years, 1 month, like just everything in between.
Oh, 1 monthers.
Yeah.
Making out.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm sorry, finish your story. You're talking about going to engage.
What was the question you asked me on that?
That's a good question. It was probably something really good. It was probably well thought out.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
No, it wasn't.
Something about the family dynamic.
I think
how to work with family.
Oh yeah, like give us some insights.
Yes.
To somebody listening to this who's thinking about doing that, going into business with their wife, or maybe if it's in a real estate broker relationship. What you have any insight on dealing with that?
Yeah, it's me is do. So you've got to put the other person first, right? Like, not only do I work with my wife, I work with my sister. She's my older sister.
Oh man.
And so like, and before that, it was my wife, my mom, and my sister.
Oh my goodness,
like,
dude.
And I know that if it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't have the humility to let them go first.
Oh wow.
Because Jaime without Jesus is like, I've been doing this for a long time. It's this way. This is how it needs to get done.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. I have more experience than everybody in this space, not in life, but in this space. And so for me, like, I find myself with an opportunity every day just to be like, all right, Jesus, let me listen. Because I know they're wise too. I know you speak through them to me and you speak through me to them. And so that's advice I would give. Like, you've got to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be a train wreck. And you're going to have either a successful business and a terrible marriage, or a great marriage and a terrible business. And me and Roxanne had talked about that. Like, I would rather have a great marriage than a good business.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cool without the business. I want this marriage to be for a lifetime.
100%. Back when probably like 6 or 7 years ago, at the beginning of mine and Vanessa's relationship, we were like, date night was, we bought Miller Lite. We bought Miller Lite, and that's what we're drinking. Like, that's our date night. I was eating, it just wasn't good. We were scraping pennies together, and we think about it now, and it's like, man, that was kind of fun back then. Like, it was kind of cool to like be in that, and it was like, it was so much fun. It's almost like our college days, or like, eating ramen. We literally had to eat ramen. But that's you remember that when you forget about it when you're getting successful, and I always bring it up, and it's like, man, screw it. Like, let's go back to the apartment on Wall Street. let's just give it all up. Obviously, we're not doing that, and that's just a joke. But there's a lot of that when you see the change, especially in a relationship. Like, it's in a relationship in general, a lot of people think their problems or their baggage goes away. I'm in a new relationship. All of my things that I don't like about myself, all the things that I'm worried about, that's going to go away. Well, it doesn't. It freaking zooms in on it, and it magnifies it and explodes it. It's the same thing with business. You can't manage your personal finance, and you start a business, you're not going to be able to manage your business finance. But that dichotomy of both, like having to deal with both, sometimes it adds more stress working with your loved one. But I think if what you said was humility, and that's huge, especially for a guy like me. I mean, my ego can get out of check with pretty quickly. But with humility and like saying kind of what you said, like, I've been in the industry for a little bit. If you know sales, you know marketing. We started a marketing company, and I'm super analytical. So a lot of times it's like push and pull. It's like, I know nothing about what you're talking about. I know nothing about graphics. I know nothing about, that stuff, but I do know analytics and I do know numbers. So it's been kind of like a meld, with Alyssa too, with me, Vanessa, and Alyssa putting our heads together. And there's so much push and pull, and you have to communicate. You have to say the things you don't really want to say. You have to speak up when you don't want to speak up, because otherwise, what I've learned in being a boss, a business owner, is sometimes that fresh perspective that you're belittling because of a lack of experience or because whatever it is exactly what you needed to hear. And you might say like, oh, that's stupid there. You're going to get back in your truck and be like, oh man, that was good. Like, yeah, that's a really good idea. And once you get fooled by yourself like that, it's like, man, you remember that one time I listened and it worked. And that when I wouldn't have even picked up the phone for that person, that's really interesting. And it's hard. It's hard to be humble when you don't want to be humble, especially for a guy like 12 years doing this, and you're having to take outside perspectives. Part of that goes back into the relationship, right? Like, you bring that same energy to your relationship. So the same way you can spiral out of control, you can exponentially get better at humility. You can exponentially get better at these things that you're not good at. I'm not getting better at graphics or social media, but I'm trying my best. But for y'all, how has that, I mean, y'all have got like an equation down, right? Y'all have y'all's own personal dynamic in melding your business and your relationship. Or are y'all still working on trying to, because you've been an agent, which is technically a business owner, right? Like, you still are working for yourself. Yeah. But then transitioning to another level, it changes stuff. Are y'all having to relearn how to kind of manage the dynamic, or is it kind of the same?
I think there's a lot of grace given with us starting a new business and just grace navigating through from you to me for sure. And vice versa. I feel like you do a good job in being humble whenever there's a real estate problem, and I offer my expertise. So
yeah, we're gonna write that one down. We're gonna write that down. We're gonna
save that clip forever. Yeah. Just like your open-mindedness just really helps us grow to the next level, because he's open. You're willing to sacrifice your ego and whatever else there is in the relationship and in the business.
How hard is that?
Man, it was a lot harder when I was younger.
Sure.
I'm 32 now, and I think when I turned 25, when I started walking with Jesus, like everything just got easier. And I don't know if it got easier, but like, you know, when you work out a muscle, it gets stronger.
Yeah.
I've just been working out that muscle for so long that
Simpler. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not easier, but simpler overall.
like I can just be aware, like, okay, this is an opportunity for me just to shut up or for me to be an a-hole and say something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's either I'm going to act in an earthly way or a godly way.
Yeah.
Do I want a natural outcome or do I want a supernatural outcome? I'll take the supernatural all day, so I got to do my part and let God do his.
Man, that's really humbling to hear that, and it's a really good perspective, and I think it's one that a lot of people need to hear. You talked about in our pre-podcast interview managing finances. Talk a little bit about that, because it was so good, and I know I needed to hear it, and I know somebody else needs to hear it also.
Managing finances for me has always been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back from when I was like a kid, because we grew up pretty poor. My dad came from Mexico and dropped out of high school here in the 9th grade. And then him and my mom married really young. So we lived in like the hood back home. And then like right around the time I was like 12 or 13, my dad had started a trucking company. He probably been in business like 2 or 3 years, but it really took off for him. Like, doesn't even know how to spell, you know, but he knew trucking.
Wow.
And if you do the right thing, you know, you're going to be good. So like the business really took off from there for him. And then he opened up like a dance hall. He opened up a radio station, a flower shop while running the trucking business, or while having other people run it for him. So like I got to see a lot of money exchanged, you know, back in the day, like my high school years. I'd go to the dances with my dad. They had a dance hall, and in a small town like ours, the entire town is there. So I remember nights counting money with my dad, like $40,000-$60,000 a night, just ones, 20s, 5s, 10s,
Wow.
100s. And so for me, I'm thankful for that experience, because like my financial thermostat at a young age was increased. Before then, I had a poverty mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like everything's scarce, you know, it's hard. It's like, and that's not true. None of it is. There's an abundance of money. They print it every day. And so seeing my dad do that, but watching him move too, like buying new cars, doing all this, created a pattern with me too. Like,
Sure.
he did it because he had it, you know? So like going from phlebotomy to real estate, I was spending like more than what I really had,
Yeah.
you know, and nothing from my parents, like they never took the time, and we never took the time to ask, like, what's up with this finance thing? You know, what do we do with money?
Yeah.
I just knew it was there and you can make it, but we never had that conversation of save, invest, taxes, things like that. So that's been something that we're working on now too, because our income has just continued to increase year over year. And our expenses have too. So I think that one of the reasons I have decided, and Roxanne and I have decided, not to really bring any agents on is because we want to be free and clear of everything before we bring on anybody. In 2021, I let go of our director of operations, and she was amazing. I mean, to this day, she's one of the best at what she does, and just an overall an amazing human being. And when interest rates went up, we had some deals fall out, and I'm looking at our reserves, and I'm like, dang, honestly, if we keep, you know, spending this much every month on this salary position, we're going to be in a bad spot, and like we're about to have this baby. So I made the decision to let her go, and that was the worst feeling ever. It was right around Christmas, like,
Oh no,
bro, the worst. We scheduled a meeting face to face, and she had access to everything, the bank accounts, everything, and so she kind of knew. She told us in that meeting, she's like, I honestly thought about telling you guys, like, I'll take time off because I see like there's nothing here. Like if 10K comes in today, it's gone that same day. Like I was kind of waiting, like she was expecting it, you know, but I never told her anything. I was just like, we're going to keep bringing money. We're going to keep bringing money in. And so that conversation was, she showed me a lot of grace in that. And, you know, we prayed together, we talked, and I had set up a couple interviews for her because I knew her position in our industry is people would pay money to have her. And she did. Where she's at now, she's making like twice as much as we're paying her.
way.
And we
That's
were
awesome.
already paying her, bro. Like, so she's doing extremely well.
That's
and,
awesome.
She's earned every bit of it.
What's her name?
Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel Borman. Dude, she's
Shout
such
out
an amazing
Rachel.
human being. Like, we talk. She works for us now on a contract basis.
That's awesome.
Per transaction. So we're thankful to have her back in our life. But
Yeah, definitely.
that happened because of the financial decisions I made. Right? I chose to go get this car. I chose to spend this that time. I chose to do those things. And I was telling Roxanne that day, I felt like it just hit me so clear. Jesus is like, how dare you make a promise to pay something back on future gains that you don't know you're going to get?
Yep.
Like, you expect things to keep coming. Like, how do you want me to give you more? If number one, the Bible says don't go in debt. You know, and there are so many reasons why it's bad to do it spiritually. You know, not just on an earthly thing, but I think that for us, being free and clear is where we want to go to grow the brokerage, and then just to, do everything cash only. So it's a very different mindset than where I've been for many of the years that I've been in business, but I know that's where we need to be,
Yeah, for sure. That's huge, man. I kind of have a similar story where when I went into underground and I had my own company, I was paying myself really well. And I was going out as fast as it was coming in, and it was like, man, you're making six figures and you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what in the world is going on? And I remember a specific time when something happened and we missed out on a contract that I was really counting on, and it was like, okay, well, let's see what we got. And then it's like, oh God, we need to get a job. We need to get on Indeed. And I look at it and it's like, I had just gotten my tax return, not my tax return, my 1099 or my K1, and I see it and I see the number and I'm looking at myself and what do I have to show for this? Mm-hmm. Like, I can't go eat out tonight. Like, I literally have to change my lifestyle. And you said it, your income goes up, but your cost of living goes up. And it's linear. It's not like I'm making so much money so my expenses stay down. There's people out there that exist like that. I'm not one of them. It's I get more money. I want nicer things, and then that money goes out fast. It's a vicious cycle. And if you're a business owner, then you're taking loans, and then you're dealing with finance guys, and like it can get really stressful really quick. And it's all self-induced. It's all self-induced. Yeah. It's all not having that conversation. It's all not being able to do what you did, which is take accountability, extreme ownership of saying like, hey, no, this was my fault. I made these decisions, and now we're missing out on Rachel. Not many people have the ability to do that. That thought is so foreign to people that there's no way it was my fault. Like, I was paying her too much. She wasn't working hard enough. As soon as
I wish we could have paid her more. Like,
I know.
Being honest, like, I want to get to that point where we can.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a testament to you as a leader. And it's no wonder you've got people following you, man. And that it's really cool to hear. You've got a complete perspective, and I know it's grounded in your faith, and obviously that's a huge part of y'all's life and what y'all are doing. And I love it. It's really inspiring, and I know somebody's going to hear this, and you're going to speak directly to them. But with that, I think we've got a lot of stuff here, a lot of resilience, a lot of risk. Y'all are in it right now. I would love to have y'all back on in a year. Let's recap it. Let's plan it.
We can
let's
drink.
Get y'all back. We can drink.
In a year.
That's right.
Unless not us, but
Yeah,
anyone
whatever.
else.
No. I will be drinking, and you will be drinking, and you will be drinking.
Yes.
And we're gonna laugh about the problems that y'all are having right now.
For
sure.
We're gonna laugh about all of this. We're gonna laugh about the finances, and y'all maybe then are gonna be bigger, have more agents or not, but no matter what, with the formula and the recipe that y'all have, in a month, y'all are going to be better than you were today. In a year, I can't even imagine. I really look forward to it. Thank y'all so much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. I'm sorry about my mess up earlier. But
no worries. Oh my gosh, that was
thank you so much. Where can we find you? I've got your socials here. We're going to put your links up there. But what y'all's go to for somebody who's looking to find y'all?
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah. Cool. Instagram, website, I'm sure too. We will we'll post all that in the socials on the episode. And I think that's it, guys. Thank y'all so much for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. Thank
Of
you.
course.